You're listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all over here in a shopping mall.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, where you can go to the interstate.
Oh,
the
which
internet.
exit, Ron?
The exit is www.woopfm.com. I've got my mistake for the day out of the way. 614-5553 is our number. Give us a call here. Deb, tell us what's going on today.
Well, let me check this date because I've been telling everybody the wrong date. It's October the 17th, 2015. Today we're going to have the Executive Director of Tennessee Overhills Association with us, Gerald Hodge, and he's going to be able to answer all of our questions about things that go on a little bit. What direction would that be from us, Ron?
Northeast.
Northeast of us. I think one of the great things about living here is you're just a day trip away from some fantastic historical sites, and he's going to tell us what all you can see up in that neck of the woods. And so we're glad to have Gerald with us today. Before we get started, we wanted to...
What's not happening today is the powwow.
Yes, I told 500 children at Black Fox School to have their parents take them to the powwow today. So I'm sure that's not going to be a very pleasant Monday when they come tell me they drove all the way down there, and it's next Saturday. We're needing type O blood donors in the area right now, and if you are an if you have O type blood and can donate, you can call Blood Assurance. They'd be glad to hear from you. And Ron's our friend Ray Branham and his family are having the second annual gospel singing tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m. at the Lad.
How come you put Ray Branham on me?
He's our friend.
Oh, our friend. Okay, I'll accept that.
Glad Springs Church of God, just across the line there in Polk County in Oak Fort, Tennessee, and that'll start October the 18th. That is tomorrow, 5 p.m. Be sure to go out and see Ray and his family and tell him that you heard us say nice things about him right here on Old Town Cleveland. We'd like to say hello and good morning to some listeners of ours from Raleigh, North Carolina. We understand they listen all the time, and that would be Ron and Nancy Creasman. Former natives of this area, and we understand that they really enjoy listening to Old Town Cleveland, so we're glad to have them listening.
Yes.
And you know, the Sequoia Museum, Gerald, that's up in your neck of the woods.
It is.
They're having half price day today.
They are, and also Fort Loudon is having, this weekend is having their 18th century fair, I believe it is.
The 18th century fair, the fall fair, I believe that's correct.
Yes, and they're within half mile each other.
Right. If you go to one, you might as well go to the other because it's in the same neighborhood. And Fort Loudon is a great place to take kids because you might see most anything there on these weekends where they're having, I'll call it a reenactment of sorts. You know, they may have someone there shearing sheep or milking a cow or
making pottery, any number of handcraft things. I think they'll have a blacksmith there also.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a really neat thing to think. And when you stand there and you think, I don't think I would have wanted to live out here long ago. No Walmarts.
Nope. If you didn't make it, you weren't self-sustaining, and you weren't going to be able to survive.
That's right. Okay. Tell us what define Overhills, Tennessee for me. Where did the organization get that name?
Well, first, Debbie, thank you for having me on today.
We've invited you several times, and you've been so busy.
Absolutely. We, especially this time of year, October's not just with the fall colors, but everybody has festivals every weekend. Mm-hmm. We have multiple festivals throughout the Tennessee Overhill. Well, the Tennessee Overhill is a nonprofit, promotes cultural tourism in Polk, Monroe, and Meade counties. we act as the destination manager for McMahon and Polk County also. The Tennessee Overhill, we get our name from the Overhill tribe, or correction, the Overhill towns of the Cherokee Nation. There's several towns. You have the lower towns, you have the upper towns. For example, over in North Carolina. But this was always called Overhill, and even with the white settlers that came in later on, you remember the Overhill men that fought during the American Revolution in the War of 1812. So this area was known as the Overhill. It was the frontier at the time. So that's where we get our name. It's to pay tribute to the early settlers here in the Tennessee Overhill
Now, would
area.
Bradley County have been considered the valley towns? The valley towns, is that correct?
I think the valley towns were over in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
I just remember seeing it all on a map, and I couldn't remember. I don't know exactly what Bradley County would have been, but
give me a split second.
he's doing research and everything.
Yeah, I've got my notes. The valley towns would be over in North Carolina, the historic middle and valley towns. Of course, we have the Overhill here.
Get closer to your microphone. There you are.
Okay, and the historic lower towns are in North.
So are we in? Well, it says Ridge and Valleys. Is that where we are?
That would be Ridge and Valleys are the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Okay,
So,
we were just there somewhere.
right. So
Could have been split in the Cherokee groups also. Ours was,
There were different factions.
yes, they were. As a matter of fact,
It was
we
really
had this
complicated.
we had this linguistics discussion a few weeks ago. The Overhill actually has a different dialect from the other towns in North Carolina, and it's the same way here in modern day linguistics. You have people that are isolated. The language has a tendency to get slightly, I won't say twisted, but enunciations are made differently. I'll give you a couple worldwide examples. In Spain, you have the Castellano dialect, if you will. That Spanish is different from Spanish in South America, for example. In South Korea, because of the isolation between the two halves of the country, even what's been 60 years or so, 60 or 70 years, those dialects they've picked up that there's some dialect.
There's some
Changes.
differences. Yes.
Well, there's
I
some
agree with
difference between Tennessee and Alabama.
Well, absolutely. Well, in the American South, there's 5 to 7 different ways things are enunciated between you have the Charleston dialect, you have the East Tennessee dialect. I often, amazingly enough, in my military service, I always got of course you're a Southern hick kind of thing, and then I come back home, and then they accuse me of being a Yankee because my dialect's changed since I was a child.
Yes.
So I can't win.
We can't win.
If you're in North Carolina, it's thunderstorms. Thunderstorms, and in Alabama, they call the laws.
They call the law.
Not the law, the laws. But they're different terminology.
Well, and it's geographic, and it's also economic. I mean, it's a lot that has to do with it too.
With that, the Overhills Cherokee, they were agricultural, would you say, or furs, or what? Or yes?
Yes, all the above. I mean, one of the things, because the Unicoi Turnpike and trade, the global trade, if you will, with the whites in Charleston, South Carolina. I'll emphasize Charleston, South Carolina,
Yes.
Charleston, Tennessee. Somebody was talking about Charleston the other day, and it took me a few minutes to realize they were talking about Charleston, South Carolina, not Charleston, Tennessee. That trade, to be able to buy those items, what they had to offer were furs. So they would hunt furs, throughout the region, throughout the hunting areas, and they would bring them back, and they would trade them with the traders that would come up with manufactured European goods. But it's still, you had to have, it's kind of hunter-gatherer kind of thing. But there were
a
more,
little bit of everything.
yeah. But you had the women who had the gardens, Three Sisters, and all that. So it's agricultural, and the whites are doing the same thing. You have to be able to sustain yourself. You have to feed yourself through the wintertime, and all that.
Now, Fort Loudon is located in what town?
It is just outside Von Orr.
Von Orr.
Yeah.
Von Orr. And Sequoia's there too, the Museum of Sequoia.
Yeah, the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, which is Eastern Band of the Cherokee.
They support
Nation.
that.
Yes, they sponsor that. They're about to go through some renovations.
Yay. Much needed.
Much needed.
It's just wore out. I mean, it's not.
When it was set up originally, it was the 1970s, early 1980s. So those displays are really dated. I mean, it's, the audio visual equipment is way dated. Some of the, academic work has changed.
Yes. We're always finding something new.
And as we progress, it often will change the interpretation. Now, I think they've done some of that, like the stopgap stuff. They need to get something really changed really quickly. But they're going into this next phase of investing money, getting these displays.
And the Eastern Band, I believe, is the one investing the monies.
They're having to do some fundraising. The Eastern Band it's kind of the
matching.
Typical. We'll help you out, but you got to have some skin in the game.
Got to help yourself a little bit.
That's it.
Right. And they don't mind doing that at all.
No, and they're doing well in that aspect, and I think they'll reach their goals sooner.
And it's a pretty amazing thing that you had this one individual that could not read or write in any language, managed somehow to write this Cherokee language, and it was a written language. To be able to document and how much history that has saved. And so the entire nation that was here, the Cherokees that were here, it wasn't very long until everyone could read in Cherokee.
Right.
About 2 years?
I think, I think Sequoia is a very observant person. He realized when he watched the white man do his, he was a businessman too, and he watched when the white men did their work and how they recorded, their inventories, their buying and selling. He's like, we've got to be able to do this same type of thing, or we're not going to be able to carry.
We're going to have to.
We're not going to be able to carry our history or our language onward. And the Cherokee Nation right now, when I say Cherokee Nation, I'm talking about all three bands. They realize that, and one of their biggest emphases, if you will, is the young people learning the language.
The spoken
language and the written language, because they want to be able to pass that on, because really, one of the identifying characteristics of civilization is a nation's language. That's the reason why, when people immigrated to the United States in the 1800s, their families pushed them, need to learn English and get educated. That was a priority. The Italians, the Russians, everybody, the Jews. So,
I think the amazing thing the Eastern Band has done is that in the 1980s, they got down to like 3 elderly women who could still speak and write Cherokee. 3 individuals, 80 years old. And they took the knowledge of those ladies and they trained teachers. And then they started in their preschool program, exposing those little preschool minds to the oral language and then the written language. And so many of the young people now can read and write in Cherokee, and it's amazing. And 30 years later, you have generations that can read and write, and it was saved by 3 people that were dedicated to the cause.
Well, during the Tri-Council, there a lady was pointing out to me that was doing some of the interpretation legwork there as the council took place. And it was pointed out to me that this lady, I'm sorry I forgot her name, but she lived in a log cabin with her family. She did not learn how to speak English until she was about 10 or 11 years old. So she has all that, that language is a very important thing. If you don't,
You have to have one language
it-
well developed to put the other languages onto.
to be
yes.
able, as a child, that has to be imprinted on the brain. That's the reason why it's so important to educate children as early as you can, because that it's in their mind, and that's when your mind is most impressionable. Learning a second language late in life is not a good idea. I
harder.
can barely speak the King's English, and I love travel. I've traveled all over the world, but languages are hard for me because growing up, grew up in Sale Creek across the river. We did not have a second language. We didn't have foreign language classes, so I never developed that skill. And even as an adult traveling,
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard to learn the basic
And
stuff.
when you go to Mexico, you got to know how to order a beer and ask where the bathroom's at.
That is everywhere. I learned that in Korea. I learned that in Germany.
Let me change the subject just a little bit here. Your offices is located in the old depot, Etowah Depot?
Yes, the office is located in the old L&N Depot, but I like to emphasize to folks that we're oftentimes we're located out. People think we're an Etowah organization. We're not. We're the 3 counties, Polk, Monroe, and Main counties, and we promote all those counties equally. It's very important for us to do that because we're mutually supporting. We have assets, inventory, however you want to put it. It's all mutually supporting. We have beauty, we have action, we have all of the things that people want to come see, regardless of what age group, what demographic there
It's
is.
just a center point, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy for us.
Now, who
because,
actually runs the depot? The museum part of it.
the museum part of it is the whole building is really a group effort. It's owned by the city of Etowah. The Historical Society runs the gift shop, and of course the curates the items for the museum and stuff. There's a Etowah city employee that runs the day-to-day operations, if you will. Of course, we have offices there, and also in the historic baggage room we have all of our brochures, and then we also the Etowah Chamber of Commerce works there. So, and we all talk on a daily basis.
But it's a great place to go if you're wanting to go to somewhere in the Overhill.
And this last year, or back in June, the Old Line celebrated its 125th anniversary.
Wow.
And the Historical Society was able to secure funds for an exhibit that's on the second floor of the museum, up next to the office I occupy. And it's a great exhibit. It tells the history of the line. It has a really
I hadn't seen
good,
that. I need.
good
That's
map.
is that the new display?
Yes, it is. And then, of course, it's got a slideshow that rotates through pictures and some interpretation. So it's a very good thing.
Tell us when the depot's open for tours.
Well, it's open Tuesday through Saturday. It's not formally open on Sunday. We have train passengers that come in, but that's about midday, and then it closes back up again. But from about 8:30 until 4, it's open for folks to come in. If you have groups, if you call ahead of time, they can arrange for somebody to take them through and give them a tour and also some interpretation.
Is there a fee?
No, it's absolutely free.
Okay, there's something you can do this afternoon.
Yep.
You can drive up there,
See some of the color along the way.
and see if your kids like trains. If they may be interested. If you like trains, go up there and tour the. And I've got a picture up on the internet for those people on the internet. That's a
wonderful
picture of the
that
depot.
has been
It's a
saved.
beautiful. I wish we had something like that. We don't.
Well,
We have a nice little building.
The
but
depot served as it had two purposes. One for the passenger service. That's basically the bottom floor of the museum, or the bottom floor of the building. But the top floor was the Atlantic Division headquarters. That's where they did all the engineer planning and all that. So you can go up there. The Portico room is a really beautiful room. But
Now, what room is that?
Portico room. That's the one. It's got an area where cars drive up underneath it. It is decorated in early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, artifacts and
I've gone to little
couches.
plays in that room, haven't I? Is that did they have the mystery at? Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. It's been a few years, maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, they often have weddings, and like I'm gonna have a meeting there Wednesday morning with the leadership men.
So, Gerald, when you're there alone, do you ever hear footsteps coming down the hallway?
Well, funny you should mention that. There's a allegedly. I have not witnessed this. I want to. Matter of fact, I want to have a conversation with the two specters. But there's an older lady and there's a younger lady there. Supposedly haunt the place. I have heard footsteps, doors creaking, and stuff like that. And during normal business hours, unless there's somebody there, a tourist, I'm normally the only one there. I know when they come up, I can hear. This is when I hear this stuff. No one's around. A past employee has seen them in the past, and this is
A past employee.
yeah. Well, I know what actually she retired. She'd worked there for a number of years. She's and not one of those people I would ever say was imagine things. I mean, she's like, hey, this is what I saw, which was it's interesting. And if I ever see him, I want to.
There you
Chat.
go.
And maybe that's the reason why I'm not seeing them, because I want to see them. I don't know.
That's right. I love it. Now,
Now, the name Etowah, the name Etowah, everybody thought that was an Indian name. My understanding is that some railroad worker hung up a sign that said Etowah, and that's how they got it.
Well, you have an Etowah, Georgia. It is it's supposedly a Creek name, meaning village or town. So if whether that gravitated up from Etowah, Georgia, I don't know it. I've never seen anything in writing that said that it had gravitated up. Of course, you got the Etowah River too.
Yeah. Well, like say, and so it's not a Cherokee word.
No, it would
So
be,
that
would be
everybody's, well,
Creek.
there's another.
There's some mixing with Creek and Cherokee in the area. We've I'm trying. It has come to my attention here recently that there was actually some Creek when the Cherokees were removed from North Carolina. That there were also some Creek that were in.
there were
mixed
creeks
in
that
with them.
actually came into Fort Cass.
Yes.
Not like 8 or something like
Yeah.
that. But then they were removed with the Cherokees and were at Blythe's Ferry.
Mhm.
And so when you go over to the Blythe's Ferry Memorial Park, which is another nice day trip, they have the Creek flag, the United States flag, of course, Tennessee flag, the Creek flag, and the Cherokee flag there, and that's why.
And also there in Etowah is the Carnegie.
The Carnegie Library,
Yeah.
one of the few that's still in existence in the nation.
Right.
It was built, of course, by the Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie. One of his philanthropy things that he did in his life, trying to probably make up for Jonestown, Pennsylvania, I think it was,
Yeah.
that had
Yes.
flooded, was to build libraries, especially in rural areas. And that's one of the ones that,
1,400 in America, I believe.
yeah, and I think less than 100 of them survive today.
There's some of the buildings. I think there were 7 buildings in Tennessee that are still left. None of them, except the Etowah, has been used as a library. But they share it. Is it a library still, or
It absolutely is.
library? And then the city offices are there too.
The city offices are down in the basement. It's an amazing building. It looks like something a Carnegie Library. I think I don't quote me on it, but I think there was kind of a standard way to set them up. It's a beautiful building, and they celebrated their
100th
100th.
anniversary?
Yeah, 100th
Ron and I
anniversary
went
this year.
up to the Art Guild's room or something, or building.
There was
and
700. There was 7 of them in Tennessee. None of them are used as a library now, except the one in Etowah. And some of them are in total disrepair.
Right.
Some are used for other things. Now, let me ask you the toughest question of the day.
Oh boy.
Okay. If for our listeners, if they wanted to do something in the next few weeks, tell me the 5 things from Overhill, Tennessee,
Okay.
or for the area.
Okay.
I mean, if it's right outside your area, but 5 things that you think they ought to do. Now, tell us whether they're free or
Okay.
money or. Go ahead.
Well, I want to hit all three counties.
Okay.
First thing I would say is if you're physically able, well, you don't have to be physically able, but first thing is it's a great time of year to get out and do a hike and go into the woods. The foliage is changing. We published back in the spring a waterfall map, and we have in Polk and Monroe counties there are over 61 waterfalls that we know of.
Well, I did not know that myself.
We promote 20 of them. The others are either on private property, they're ecologically sensitive, or they're downright dangerous to get to.
Yeah.
So in our waterfall brochure, you can go. Most of them you have to hike to. There is one up in Monroe County. It's called Bald River Falls. I've been told it's the most photographed waterfall in southeast Tennessee because you can drive up to it, and for folks it's mobility challenged. It's a very beautiful waterfall. It's one of the largest in the area. It's about 90 feet tall. So you can drive up, park. There's a parking area right beside the bridge, and you just walk out onto the bridge, and people take photos. It's a beautiful, and you know what? You can go back to any of the waterfalls. You can go back to, and it won't look the same because the foliage has changed. The volume of water, of course, after a rain, these waterfalls are dumping a lot of water, so it changes your perspective on them quite a bit. So that's, I guess, number one.
I have a
waterfalls.
question.
Right.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Are there bears in them there woods?
yes, they are. One of the things that you just kind of have to be situationally aware, and for people that do a lot of hiking, normally they have bear spray with them. One of the things that is emphasized on a waterfall brochure, and I have one right here for people looking online. You open the first fold up, and it's the precautions.
Yeah.
And
Safety and wildlife and environmental.
Do not feed the bears.
Do not feed, not just feed the bears, but don't do selfies with bears.
Yes.
Which
That
is
would be a good
in
one.
modern day society has become a problem. And also the number one thing on here is once you get into the national forest, there's no cell phone signal, and that freaks a lot of people out. Believe it or not, I mean everybody's got over the past 20 years. This is everybody's security device.
Yes.
You can always call for help, except
in the mountains. So you got to be situationally aware. And if you go to Bald River Falls, there's not. I've never. It's not a bear area, but you got to always be prepared.
always be conscientious.
So the waterfalls is number one.
You got a brochure, you can come up there and find out, or can you go online and find out?
Absolutely. What you do? Well, our brochure is. We don't have it online because once you get in the mountains, you don't have cell phone signal.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we decided to go with the brochure.
Okay.
If you have this and you decide, well, I want to go on the Tennessee Overhill website and look at the stuff, well, you can't do it up there. So that's the reason why we went ahead and did the water. That way, the waterfall brochure, you can have it in your hands.
Tell the folks, now this is sponsored by Tennessee Overhills and Citizens National Bank and
the Tennessee Department of Tourism Development.
How does something like this go from an idea to a brochure? Whose idea was this? Or a bunch of people?
Well, it had been talked about for some time, but my predecessor, she had some trepidation about tackling it, and I decided when I came on board, I wanted to eventually tackle it, and I've been about 18 months. I was the executive director, and I decided to jump on into it.
Ron Benton Helms is on here.
Yes, and we made sure to work in some sites to go out there and see.
Well, there's a place I need to go see then.
Yeah, I learned something the other day. They did sausages. I didn't realize they had.
I haven't tried. Now, the bacon thing, let me give our spiel here. It's, where am I at
Good
today?
morning. Good morning. It's Old Town Cleveland.
All right, let's start over. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9 or the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. The phones are now open, and we got Gerald Hodge. I didn't say what they are.
Yes.
From Tennessee
He can't
Overhill.
afford an S on his name.
No.
So give us a call here at 614-5553. If you got any questions about Tennessee Overhill and the many things he's going to do, he's going to tell us the other 4 things that you got to do. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Hey, Bullet. How are you, buddy?
Not too good this morning. No, there's something happened yesterday evening around 5 o'clock. Someone vandalized me again. They stole everything I had up there.
At the graveyard?
Yeah.
Okay. For you listeners, Bullet takes care of the Veterans Graveyard up on Fort Hill, and he keeps a lot of his supplies at Moe's and all that, and he does that volunteer, and someone has stolen all of his stuff again.
I actually stole 2 of my lawnmowers, 2 weed eaters, and I filed a police report, and I think I'm getting Channel 9 News involved, and because this is going to stop. It's going to have to stop.
Yeah, that's sad, and thank you for all you do up there, you and Paul both, and for people to steal that. And if anybody has any knowledge of this, please contact the Cleveland Police Department.
Well, I was told Ron, as a witness, said he saw a van sitting in front of there, and when he started coming, they took off. It was a light blue Odyssey van, and but I did file a police report, and I'm in kind of bad health anyway, and this made it worse on me. But I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm going to try to get Channel 9 News involved, and it's going to have to stop.
I agree there. We'll continue to think. So if anybody's seen anything at Fort Hill that looks suspicious, please call the Cleveland Police Department. Like I say, Bullet and his brother does this free of charge for the people of Bradley County and our veterans, and we need to make sure this kind of stops.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
Hey,
Bullet.
bye-bye. That's a sad thing that happened, but there's some negative things happen. All right, Gerald, what's number 2?
Okay, the next thing I think probably spinning off what we've been talking about before is probably the Sequoia Birthplace Museum and Fort Loudon. That's in the north of our area.
Today'd be a good afternoon to go too.
Today would be a great day, or even to if they can't jump out there the next couple hours, to go up there tomorrow and
Half price
at the Sequoia Birthplace Museum. I think the price is $8 for Fort Loudon, but you're going there with the event.
They've got a
going
good
on.
20-minute video that tells about Fort Loudon. Matter of fact, it was replaced probably in the last year and is excellent. And for those of you who have a national park passport, they have a stamp there, I believe,
Yes, they do.
or they had a state park stamp or something, because I remember stamping my book there.
And Sequoia has great information. Like I say, they're going to completely update that, and it'll be all modern, and then you'll want to go back. But it's still a good time to go. And outside the museum, there's a little trail around there, and they have a burial mound that they've highlighted, and there's some. You can walk down along the river, and they got some interpretation signs.
Right.
Fortunately, the place where Sequoia was actually born is under the lake now,
have to
but
go
that happens.
You have to go scuba diving to find it now.
That happens.
That a number of the in that area, the number of the towns that were there before Lake Tellico was backed up are all underwater now. A lot of the artifacts. There's 2 different places where some of the artifacts are at. One's in the McClung Library in Knoxville, and of course they're at the Sequoia Birthplace Museum. You can see some of them. Also, I see this probably going away when they do the updating of the displays. But they showed a lot of the archaeological work that was done. Archaeologists like to show pictures of themselves digging. So a lot of those pictures are around. You
We
can
just
see
went
what
to
they're
a
doing.
place like that, didn't we?
I'm sorry?
Was you at the?
Yes, he was at the-
you was
yeah.
up there.
Right.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people showing
People
pictures of
pushing
themselves
Right.
there.
Well, see, yeah.
Sifting dirt.
And we know more about beans now too.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I found that fascinating.
I did
and but my question was, okay, is it green beans? Is it pinto beans? What exactly kind of beans? It wasn't quite clear to me.
They couldn't.
We we were all like, the group I was sitting with were like, okay, what kind of beans? Because I love green beans and I love pinto beans.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we went to an archaeological symposium, and there was 2 guys that talked for 45 minutes about the bean. And the reason that it was so important is it kind of tells you when the beans are not native to
Yeah, it's
this
the
area.
migration.
So someone, either that meant that the Indians had migrated or they had contact with someone that had beans. And it was pretty interesting. Let me say something while I'm thinking about it, Ron.
That's what I had something.
Sequoia
I'm thinking about.
Sequoia Museum also does educational programs. I know for the next 4 Mondays, they are teaching the Cherokee language. Someone's coming from the Eastern Band there to teach the
Right.
Cherokee language. There is a fee involved. That's all I know about
And
it.
you better get in there quick because
It fills
those
in.
classes fill up.
Oh.
Those classes in the pottery class, the basket weaving or pottery classes, they fill up within just a few days.
So if you're interested in that, the best thing to do is just go online and look up the Sequoia Museum and Birthplace Museum and call them direct today. Tell them you heard us talk
Fort
about it.
Loudon. Give us a quick history of why Fort Loudon's there and the Cherokee
Well,
confrontation
Friend or
there.
foe?
Yeah.
Well, and went back and forth. But Fort Loudon is a colonial. It's when the British were still, they were predominant on the continent back in the 1760s. They set the fort up as a kind of a contact point with the Cherokee, so the traders could have some place to go to do trade. Of course, the more the military showed up, the more it kind of made the natives, no pun intended, made the natives mad. So there was friction points between the British Empire and, of course, even when the French got involved, and that didn't help matters either because you had different factions that were supporting the French and different factions that were supporting the British.
Their little
So-
their little movie up there explains it well.
Yeah, it does.
And you get to see actually what a barracks would have looked like and what a blacksmith shop would have looked like and those kinds of things.
So it's interesting. How about number? You want me to do number?
Go ahead,
3?
drum roll, number three.
Number 3. Between now and I think it's the beginning of November, but you need to double check the dates. They're still doing whitewater rafting on the Koi.
Whew.
Okay, the first time I have ever whitewater rafted, not the first time I've been in a rubber boat, but the first time I whitewater rafted was about 2 weeks ago with the legislative folks. Getting
Was
them
he
on
trying to
board.
drown some of them?
No.
Well, I had one in front of me, but he seemed like a nice guy,
Okay.
so I didn't hit him in the back with my T handle.
Yeah.
But we went on the trip, and it was pretty amazing. I'm not a water person. I kind of don't like water. I lived in Chesapeake, Virginia, for 5 years when I was stationed in Norfolk, and I went to the beach about 4 or 5 times because I had people come to visit me that didn't want to go to the beach.
Yeah.
So, but it was a great time. We had great guides. I think the outfitters do a great job professionally teaching their folks, the do's and don'ts and that kind of thing. I think we have a call.
There we go.
Good morning, you live in Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
morning.
morning. Is this Pat?
Yeah,
Good morning, Pat. Go ahead.
let me say something about Loudoun County.
Go ahead.
One of the most important sites I think ever discovered in the whole country was at Back Creek, a small mound that looks insignificant, really. It had 9 Levitical priests buried there, and they uncovered a stone that was written in Paleo-Hebrew. It dates back to the Woodland period, and it was correctly translated by Dr. Arnold Murray. It said, "Let Yahweh, Hebrew God, let him be the poker that gathers these firebrands together," something like that. It's real close to what's called the Warriors Trail, the Warriors Path. The Warriors Path went up into Ohio, real near the Newark earthworks. They found Decalogue stones in Paleo-Hebrew in Newark. Come south, and in Dade County, Georgia, they found Paleo-Hebrew writing down there. So,
Yeah, I think we just had it's a deep and interesting history in this area.
it's a treasure.
It is.
I hope it still exists.
I don't know. And something, Pat, when we went to this archaeological symposium a few weeks ago, there are people that, not in this area, have gone into the caves and they have found at least the Cherokee Silberry. And so I'm hoping that when they get in there and start exploring, they'll find more things than that.
And let's remind everyone, it is against the law to dig into mounds and remove the artifacts.
Yeah,
and
please
sell the
don't.
artifacts. Just be proud that you know where some are and what's there, and leave it to the experts. I just want to throw that out. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Not that Pat does that. Go
No,
ahead,
I know
Pat.
Pat doesn't do it.
Pat digs into the history
Pat's
books.
like me. We're too lazy to go out in the woods now.
I just like to say, some of those mounds may just look like almost nothing there.
Yes.
They may contain some important discovery that not, and there's a lot of them's never been opened up.
And hopefully they won't be unless
it's against the law to dig into the mounds, period.
But
big or small.
We do have archaeologists that get approved to do those things, and we do have an archaeologist coming here, Sean Patch, who done Hiawassee Island, is going to be here on November 28th, and he's going to
be very interesting.
He's going to talk about what they're trying to do for Hiawassee Island and what they found there, and it is owned by TVA. It is a national site, so don't dig on that island. You will go to prison up there real quick. So just want to pass that out.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, but there are mounds everywhere, Pat, and more than we know, and some of them are hidden in trees and things, and we're probably lucky that some of them are hidden. All right. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Always good talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990, if you want to Google that and see what it covers, it basically says don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the last year's symposium, the elders were very specific because they were sitting there and they were talking about it. Their position, the Cherokee Nation's position is, if it's, do not touch human remains. I mean, they don't want you to even touch them, leave them in place. They don't want to relocate them or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
it's a touchy situation.
Right.
it's
Well,
Okay.
very culturally
So,
So, all right.
so did you end up taking a swim when you went to whitewater rafting?
I did not. I managed to stay in the boat. The guide tells you how to wedge your feet into the folds of the raft, and I dug them a little deeper into the raft. I don't swim very well. And of course, you have a life preserver on.
Ron swims really well if the water is not over his head,
Once
but
the
once he
water's over
knows
my
the
head, I
water's
freak out.
over his head,
Yeah.
he can't swim.
Yeah. So it was a nice time. I mean, it was a little cool, but once you have the kind of like body armor and you got it on, you heat up real quick, and when the water splashed on you, it felt pretty good actually. Cooled you
Now,
down.
Gerald, do you know
Quite
what?
a bit of work too, isn't it?
Oh, well, yes. I thought it'd be a lot more work involved than what it was, because our guide would tell us, okay, when I tell you to do this, then you paddle, this amount,
Yeah.
and then I'll tell you to rest. And then if you go on the Tennessee Overhill Facebook page, I've got 2 clips on there of I had a GoPro on my helmet, so you can watch the others actually, because it's on my head. Us rowing.
Gerald, do you know where we stand with TVA and the use of the river?
Right now, they have not come back with any kind of counter offer. For those of you that don't know, Tennessee Valley Authority wants to limit recreational rafting. They want to dedicate more of their time, I think, to power generation. Power generation by the dams is actually pretty minuscule compared to Chickamauga or the nuclear power plants. What they're wanting to do is they want to charge the rafting industry $9 million lost revenue.
Mm-hmm.
They want that paid up front, and the rafting industry cannot do that. Even if they mortgaged all their assets, they were not going to get close, and banks are not going to offer
Yeah.
Unless you have collateral, banks are not going to give you a loan for $9 million up front.
I hate that. And I hope that they kind of come to their senses and remember that recreation is part of their duties.
Well, it's just not that. It's the whole economic development piece.
Absolutely.
Polk County has limited resources when it comes, very, very little, if any, industry, and outdoor recreation is what they depend on.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are offices in TVA that tout, we do rural economic development. Okay, guys, if you do economic development, you need to put your money where your mouth is, because what you're saying and what you're doing are two different things.
Well, when if you go back and look why they were created in the first place, it had nothing to do. Well, power generation was down the list,
Right.
about 10th. It was flood control,
Right.
then recreation and agricultural.
Mhm.
All that was in there, and
Yeah.
power generation was just a secondary thought.
Right.
And so, enough. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9. You can call us here at 614-5553, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can see us and hear us there. And also, there's a place where you can log in and send questions to Deb. We got Gerald Hodge here, and he's the executive director of the Tennessee Overhill Association, and he's telling us the things that you can do here in this area. Many of them are free. He's told us the top 3 already, and we'll repeat them again here later so you can hear them.
I want to remind
got a call?
everybody that the Apple Festival is going on today in downtown Cleveland. Let's get this call.
All right. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, is this Ron?
This is Ron.
It is, and you're live on the air. Who are we talking to?
This is Pauline.
Hey, Pauline. It's so nice to hear from you.
Well, it's nice to hear y'all. I just want to let you know we're listening to you.
Well,
We appreciate it.
we appreciate you hanging with us.
All right.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you. Have a good day.
We usually play Papa's music, but I didn't get to it today, but usually I play.
Her dad recorded music, in the 1920s,
Yeah.
you think? Real traditional music, and they were wise enough to get someone in Nashville to redigitize it.
Mhm.
Gosh. And our listeners love it. And we call it
Great.
Papa's music because that's what Paulina called.
Yeah.
Pauline called it.
We didn't play it this morning, but usually I do play. I play a couple of songs about every week. Sometimes it gets busy. All right, Gerald, what's number 4 on this list?
Downtown Athens. And here's the reason why we still have some interpretive work to do in downtown Athens, but part of that's going to have to be with the cooperation of the National Park Service that moves like molasses in wintertime. So here
Be
two,
patient.
In Alaska.
I know, yeah. Here's the two things that to take into consideration. Downtown Athens has 2 Trail of Tears things that took place there. Well, actually 3, but I'll do these 2 first. First, the Trail of Tears for the North Carolina Cherokee comes up Jackson Street. It turns onto Madison. Of course, Madison's a one-way street now, but back in those days, there wasn't no one-way streets. It turns west onto Madison, and then it goes out of town. That route went directly through downtown Athens. So when you stand on that street corner, you're standing on the Trail of Tears.
And there should be a sign there.
And there should be a sign there, and it's one of the things that we're working on. We are next in the hopper. It'll be some time next year with the National Park Service sponsoring what they call a charrette, which is not Muslim. It's actually a actually a meeting of people with a like interest, and of course the like interest being the Trail of Tears.
And so they would have come through there and come to Calhoun, cross the river, and be in Fort Cass.
That is correct.
Where did they come from? Fort Butler in Murphy? You think?
Originally, that's where they started out, was Fort Butler, and then of course they made their way across the mountains through Coker Creek and then down to Tellico, and then at that point the different contingents took different routes. There's 3 routes that wind through McMinn County at that point, but they all join. They all join about where the old Inglewood Road and Jackson Street all meet. And then, of course, it goes up Jackson Street past the Daily Post Athenian, and then on into the downtown area.
And for folks who, may not know about the Trail of Tears, you had these huge groups of folks moving. It's definitely a crime against humanity. But anyway, you had these huge groups moving, and they were coming by and buying stuff and using the natural resources so that they would alter their trail so everybody wasn't on the same trail. And that may be one of the reasons for them to do the 3 trails, or it gets muddy, or you just use common sense.
Well, one of the routes, for example, was one of the contingents was led by East Tennessee Militia. And they were local guys, and they knew a different route that made their trip a little bit shorter, so they went the different route. So that's one of the reasons for that. But there's concern. And of course, it was June, July time frame, so it was hot. So I don't think they had a whole lot of wet weather. Possibility that
it's kind of drowning,
especially after this last year. We had the wet June.
So if you go to Murphy and you stand where the railroad depot building is, you're standing where they camped there. That was Fort Butler. That area was Fort Butler. And then when you come across the mountain, go through Coker Creek and all that, and come into Athens, well, you've followed the trail, and it is not an easy trail.
No. What a lot of people, I've seen this through the years with a lot of different folks, and my wife and I just had this discussion many years ago when I was stationed in Kansas, because eastern Kansas is hilly. People always think flat Kansas. Well, that's western Kansas, towards closer to Colorado. So those wagons, you go up and down hills. You break axles and you break wheels and stuff all the time. It's a treacherous thing. You've got to be we go back to self-sustaining. You had to have people that be able to work on
everything.
I mean, just blacksmithing, wheelwrights.
Someone
everything.
had to carry the fire, and somebody. It was a strange.
Is
thing.
this 1838 same time frame?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So these Cherokees were routed through the United States. We think a lot of the down here in Bradley County. That all we got were the Cherokees that were in Cherokee Nation.
No.
So but your people had to come out of North Carolina and Tennessee and come through Athens, right? Is that correct?
Yes, North Carolina, then
and
through
see,
Tennessee.
they expected an uprising up there, so General Scott actually went to Murphy himself to help with the roundup, because there was a huge number of Cherokee up there compared to what we had here, what's now Bradley County, and he expected more trouble from up there.
And you imagine going through the United States, which was Athens at that time, and Hiwassee River was the border of the United States. We went into Cherokee. I'm sure there's a lot of white settlers were leery about it, because they had been some battles, and I think Scott went to Butler because he thought that's where the most trouble was going to be.
As far as whites along the route, the surviving accounts that I've seen is people were uncomfortable with the removal. So especially, you have to remember, the Cherokee were Christians. I mean, there were ministers, white ministers among them that were moving with them. So this was not a comfortable thing for their nation to be doing. The state or the United States.
And even the accounts in the newspapers about watching them, like in Nashville, walk by. It's a pretty moving thing that everybody knew it was wrong, but it was going on anyway.
Except the people in Georgia.
Yeah, well, the people in Georgia, it's a whole different story.
That's a little bit story, okay. But they thought they would be problem in Murphy, North Carolina, is what little I know about it.
Right.
And that's why Scott left Charleston went up there.
You did have some Solly and his bunch. There was some fighting going on. There was people, and they went into one of the reasons why you have the Eastern Band today was because some of them hid out, and they got back up into the mountains, and the federal government was like, you know what, they're a small number, they'll eventually die out, and let's not invest a bunch of resources having U.S. troops chase them around the mountains. We'll just leave them be.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Well, they got their land, basically. That was the whole ideal.
Right.
It was.
Well, and then at that time they said, well, that mountain land's not that useful.
Yeah.
And they can just go up there and they'll eventually either die out or join somebody else or something. And it didn't quite go the way the government planned it to go, but it at least happened.
Does it ever?
Yeah. What else in Athens? You said Athens.
Okay. The murder trial, the murder trial of the guys who murdered John Walker.
Mm-hmm.
that set the whole Trail of Tears in action. That took place on the courthouse square.
The beginning of the final nail.
That's it. I mean, once that took place, and then it got appealed, and all the legal battles that took place with that, then that happened right there on the courthouse square. Not in the current courthouse. It was two courthouses.
Foreman was the name of one guy. They were stepbrothers.
Right. So that was the.
And the good thing is the Athens courthouse never burned, and those records are still there. Most of them, right? The trial records.
I don't know.
Joe Guy had alluded to that fact before,
Okay.
that there are actual documentations there from that trial. I don't know if it's the whole. I don't think it's the whole thing.
No,
but
because
some of it has
appeals,
survived.
Yeah, the appeals and all that stuff have been a higher court, so they wouldn't unless somebody made a copy and brought it back or something.
I think the quick summary is that once it got to the judge, who's a friend of Andrew Jackson, ruled that the Cherokee Nation was a conquered nation, was not a sovereign nation anymore, which basically was the end of the Cherokee Nation, the beginning of what we know as the Trail of Tears.
Okay, you said there were 2 Trail of Tears signs, and is the other one the trial sign?
No.
Is the trial even marked anywhere there?
No,
Okay.
that's part of what the interpretation work that we're having to do. I'm having to. This is the portion I'm having to wait for the National Park Service.
Okay.
The scholarly work, the academic work's already been done, but what we have to do is do the charrette, identify, working with partners, with city government, county government, and my vision is a kiosk probably down the Pavilion Park area, a nice big that interprets all this, and then probably a interpretive marker up on the street corner. There's plenty of area there to do that. It's just going to. Again, we're waiting for the National Park Service.
It's painful waiting for them, but I know that it was 9 years from the time that the people in Charleston said, you guys have got to come to Charleston, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
It was 9 years, but now it's on a good slow roll now.
Right.
They're getting signs up, and
you actually could, as you drive, I know we come in on Upper River Road, and we passed a sign and almost turned around and says, "You're now entering Fort Cass."
Mm-hmm.
we were so excited because I had for years gone to the National Trail of Tears meetings and stand by those signs that says you're 385 miles from Fort Cass, but there was no sign at ground zero.
Right.
And there's so many people that probably the only time they've heard anybody talk about Fort Cass is listening to us here on the radio. And it's something that 10 years ago, I would have known Rattlesnake Springs, but I would not have talked to you about Fort Cass.
Right.
It's a learning process for all of us. And I understand that they hope within the next 12 months to have their trail started that's going to run from the Hiwassee Center, which is another good free place to go up in Charleston, and it will take you all the way to the river.
We'll be back here in a few minutes. We're going to take our mid-morning break. We're here with Gerald Hodge, and he's the executive director, I should say, I guess, Tennessee Overhill, and he's telling us the top 5 things you ought to do in this area here in the next week or two. And he'll tell us was that number 4?
Well, we got one more point on number 4.
Let's finish it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, real quick, the Battle of Athens.
Yes.
Oh, well, we won't talk about that when we come back, because I
Okay.
know Ron's got more than 3 minutes to talk about that.
No.
We always play Gone Home for all of our friends that have left us this week, and so we'll be back with you in just a few minutes here on Old Town Cleveland.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
Check into Checking to Cash.
The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check Into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check Into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check Into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest tailor-made clothing company, has been making our best-selling navy blazers for 134 years. Visit Hardwick.com to get the $295 wrinkle-resistant travel blazer at the price of $195. Order by 3 and get by 10. Free next day air. Hardwick.com, America's oldest, and sewn in Cleveland, Tennessee since 1880.
All of my friends that I loved yesterday have gone. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. The songbirds are singing, the dells seem to say gone. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of here gone. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. Life here is lonely since they've gone before. Gone. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. The old weeping willow that stands by the door sadly sighs. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of here gone. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of here gone. They left one by one as their work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where the old town goes. They moved it on over here in a shopping mall. Ooh, where the old town goes. Did my hometown get old? Or just me? Did all my friends get old? Or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told? Or just me?
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614 5553. We're talking to Gerald Hodge today. He's the executive director of Tennessee Overhill. He's been giving us a list of the top 5 things you ought to be doing in this area. He could probably mention 100, but he's trying to give you the top 5 there. So you can call us if you have any questions. Or if you say, what would be a great day trip for me and my children or my grandchildren, give us a call here, and Gerald can probably give us a good direction. You know, when I say a day, you leave at 8 o'clock in the morning and you'll be back by 5 o'clock and see a lot of things. So you can call us here at 614-5553. Gerald, you're at number 5 now, I believe.
Well, I was finishing up. I was finishing up number 4.
Go ahead with number 4.
Okay.
Battle of Athens.
Battle of Athens, the third thing to do in Athens. Now, Tennessee Overhill last year, we put together a sheet, a little map of some of the locations, events that took place during the Battle of Athens, which is not a Civil War battle. It's August 1st and 2nd of 1946. And the Battle of Athens was a rebellion of ex-GIs that had come back from World War II, and the governments, not just in McMinn County, but in many other locations, throughout the United States, there was issues with local governments being corrupt.
In Polk County and Copper Hill?
Yeah, well, actually, there was Polk County. There was actual deaths involved.
Yes.
So it's all through the state of Tennessee. Well, I'll specifically say in the state of Tennessee. So, but what got national attention was the Battle of Athens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's get this call. Don't go away yet. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing great, Brad. How you doing?
Good.
What's going on?
I was at the football game Friday night.
I saw you there.
It was a big game for us, too.
Yes, it was a big game, a big win. It was a tough game, but I think he's talking about Bradley and Hardin Valley last night.
It was homecoming for us.
Yes, that's why you were there, seeing all those girls in those pretty dresses.
No, I was escorting one of my best friends at the homecoming dance.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's good. Bradley's got 2 more ball games left, and
Friday night, Ron.
Yes.
We played Maryville.
Yes, we do. Yeah, that's not always a pleasurable thing to do. Yeah.
And as we played Maryville, Ron.
Yes.
We're back home for to finish the season out.
The regular season, because Bradley is going to be in the playoffs. They just don't know who they're playing yet.
We picked a game out of the hat.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna host a game at home.
Yes, we will.
Travel.
Yeah, we got to at least beat William Blunt to stay probably 3rd or 4th, and that means we host the first round of the playoffs.
I'll be watching. See who we draw.
Okay. Well, you make sure you give me a call.
I was going to say Walker Valley ended up winning that game Friday night.
Yes, they won it big.
It was their homecoming too.
Yes, they had a big win.
Yeah. All right, Ryan.
Hey, thank you, Brett.
All right, you too.
Right. Brett is our roving sports reporter calling in here tonight.
Gave the homecoming report.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, let's go back to the Battle of Athens.
Okay. The Tennessee Overhill last year, we produced a map, and any of our material that folks would like to request, they can either email us at info@TennesseeOverhill.com, Tennessee spelled out, or they can call 1-877-510-5765 and request it, and we'll mail it out to them for you.
If you come by the depot up in Etowah while they're open, you can pick up all these brochures or most of them.
Absolutely. Well, if they come to the depot, we have our own stuff, and then we have like 70 brochures and flyers from different venues across the area. So and of course we do Bliss Ferry. We also cross promote Cherokee sites because it's a niche market. So why not tell folks about some of the other things to see and do and not star.
Well, that's like if you travel, go through the Lost Sea, you come down to see Sequoia.
Right.
You come on down and you ride the train, you go to the Ducktown Museum. Hopefully we'll have something in Bradley County at Fort Cass in the future to see. So
we have the Hiwassee Heritage Center there now with plans for expansion.
and we have red clay.
And we have red clay.
The Battle of Athens, interesting, like I say, is the one of the things I remember is that the sheriff and his deputies would stop buses and just arbitrarily fine people, arrest people.
Well, and one of the things, especially that made the GIs mad, is they would come out of a bar. The deputy, they called it fee grabbing, and they got paid for the people they arrested or put it in. And while they're in jail, they got money for kind of rent for the prisoner.
Right.
So the GIs would be in a bar in any of the towns around the area. And they would walk out, and back in that day, you didn't have breathalyzer, you didn't have field sobriety tests. They're like, "Oh, you're drunk," and it was the policeman's word against the GI. So after a little bit of this, these guys are like, "Hey,
we fought for freedom."
Yeah, and you had this animosity going on of these guys staying back and not, for whatever reason, not going off to fight in World War II. So you had there's a friction point there, some that kind of stuff.
Right, and I think the laws allowed for this fee grabbing system in Tennessee and most states. And if you went into any southern town, you would see that sheriff was usually a very, I don't know if they were reelected, but sometime it won't happen in Athens, but I won't say what county, but there's a county where the sheriff and his deputies stood at the polling places with ball bats and their shotguns, and if you weren't one of those people voting for them, you got intimidated a little bit.
Yeah.
And so.
So we have the map. One of the things that we're going to do hopefully in the next 30 days, because I've been working on the web page that's going to be on our website, and it's going to have on the left hand side, it's going to have the 1940-ish picture, and in the middle is going to be some interpretation. There's going to be newspaper articles that I've clipped, and it's going to have predominantly what I have right now is Chattanooga papers.
Yes.
Because it's a kind of an independent, outside the area kind of thing. So I've got that in the middle, and then on the right hand side, I've got the present day photo of the location. A lot of these some of them still exist, a lot of them don't. So, for example, the L&N Depot downtown is not there anymore. It's the Pavilion Park area, and that's it's open. And
Ron and I happened to.
That's
the old courthouse.
That's the jail.
Jail.
That's the jail.
Ron put up a picture. He's not sure what it is. Ron and I were at CVS Pharmacy probably a year ago because I think we were waiting for Ron to get a flu shot. And there was an elderly man there who remembered the Battle of Athens, and he had gone to...
He set up on the hill with a machine gun.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure.
That's what these stories get.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I found in my research that and especially Hollywood gets involved. There's all kinds of things that I found to be
fabricated.
For example,
he just said things. He was telling us things that he saw, and which sounded reasonable when he was telling it, and he didn't seem to be.
Well, after you tell the story so many times, you're 96. It's the truth. Isn't it?
Well, I'm kind of a historical myth buster. I do whenever I do any type of research, I'm doing the so what, and then plus with my military background, I do really seriously, that's not going to happen. One of the things that one of the legends, one of the things you see out there on the internet is that Mr. Tom Gillespie was killed, the African American man in precinct 11. I think it was that he was shot.
He was shot,
but it was a flesh wound, and he lived to be the ripe old age of 87 years old. Matter of fact, I went to his grave last Sunday.
Yeah, no one died in the Battle of Athens.
No one died. Well, no one died in Athens during the Battle of Athens.
Right.
Now, after the battle, sometime later, the police chief in Etowah was bombed. His car was bombed. He's backing out, and that was a result, they think, of directly of the Battle of Athens. Yeah, he was backing up, and matter of fact, his grandson, I think, was in the back seat, and his car was wired with a bomb, and it blew up and blew his leg off, something like that. But he died as a result of his wounds.
Over in Polk County, there people died.
There's people that died. Yes,
people that have never been seen again.
And that made Life magazine.
Okay,
I know some people's pictures Matter of fact, he was a teacher down at Bradley High School for years.
Yeah.
was in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a great story, and in some places in Athens, people still don't talk about it.
Well, and not just Athens, but you mentioned Polk County.
Polk County, Benton's really tough.
Yeah, it's I'm not originally from the McMinn County.
Yeah.
So I'm able to come not with family baggage or anything and look at this with an independent set of eyes. Now I know some of the descendants, and I respect them a lot, but it's just like going back and talking about the American Civil War. Some people go high and right pretty quickly without looking at things objectively, and also not, people don't want to put a 150-year-old filter on their thought process.
Yes, this is true.
So, it's all very, very interesting, but as a historian, you've got to be objective and look at all points of view. It's like Debbie and I were talking about, prior to the show with the 39th Georgia Infantry.
Which we both had family members in.
Yes. One of the things I have to look at is the federal point of view. I do that as an Army officer because, battles are fought by two sides. And what one perspective is, vice the other side's perspective, it helps tell the puzzle pieces of the rest of the story. What an officer sees in a battle is different from what Johnny Reb or Billy Yank sees, the enlisted guy sees. What I see as a field grade officer is different from what a company grade officer is going to, his perspective. So you have to take all these accounts and kind of adjudicate them. I'm doing with a lot of work. we're in the process of getting in Meigs County Civil War trails marker over there for Wheeler's Crossing of his raid in October 1863.
Did he cross that Watts Ferry?
No.
Where did he cross?
It was north of there.
Okay. What was that ferry called?
There were several ferries.
Okay.
Several different sides. It wasn't Blast Ferry though. Blast Ferry had some Civil War action, but it was different time periods. So I'm having to take both because a lot of
you have to you have to be careful when you start doing history that you're not biased.
Yeah, and another thing is, and for Confederate accounts, a lot of times, especially with cavalry, there was not a lot of surviving accounts. With this, for Wheeler's guys, for example, a lot of the general officers, a couple of them died later in the war, but you had a bunch of these guys who met violent deaths not too long after the war. They had a tendency to be high strung, and they would get into fights. They'd get into fights, gun fights after the war. And the Wild West. Some of these guys went to Texas, and they met violent deaths.
They sure did. It always amazes me that when you're reading documentations from the South and from the North, they would call the same battle by different things.
Yes.
And I was reading the other day, I just found my great whatever grandpa, James Caldwell, that was in the Civil War.
And the War of the Northern Aggression.
Yeah, the War of Northern Aggression.
That's another example.
That's another example. And I read in his profile online that he had a finger shot off at Spartanburg, Maryland. And Ron was wondering why he was waving a finger at him when I said that. But anyway,
which finger got shot off?
I kept saying Sharpsburg, Maryland, shot, and I went Antietam. That was Antietam, and we were just there last year, and so or this year. This year. But anyway, I finally found him. Sometimes it takes you a while, but Ron's been getting tickled at me recently. I came back from all these Cherokee things, and I was going to find those Cherokee relatives, and so far I found a wide abundance of immigrants that everybody else would be thrilled to find out where their ancestors came from, but that's not where I wanted them to come from. And I found 4 or 5 Confederate soldiers. I even found a Revolutionary War soldier the other day and was still looking for that. And I was kind of disappointed in him. He was involved quite heavily in the Indian Wars and was so glad to say that he helped burn down the, I believe it was the Overhill towns. was there 7 villages that were burned or something like that, or a lot of villages?
A lot of villages, yeah.
Well, he was happy to announce that he participated in that. I wasn't real impressed with him.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for number 5, or are you?
Number 5. Okay, number 5 is going to be actually 2 different locations, but there's a category to it.
All right.
It's museums.
Okay.
And the 2 museums, you be very interested, especially to take children or people that's interested in kind of industry kind of things, is Ducktown Basin Museum in Ducktown. It tells the story of copper mining and the Copper Basin. Very interesting story. I had 2 ancestors that worked in the copper mines in Ducktown, and in the 1870s, when everything kind of started not doing well with copper mines, one of them, my great grandfather, went to Dayton and worked in the Durham coal mines, which was all up and down the escarpment there at Cumberland Plateau.
What were their last names?
Their last names were Kaler. Kaler with a K, which I understand at some point different factions of them changed it to K and some to C. So
I know that a lot of people from this area with that name came from Townsend and came down into this area.
Okay. The other location would be Charles Hall Museum in Tellico Plains. Charles Hall Museum is a very interesting place for, for the gentlemen. There is telephones and there are
motorcycles,
guns, and
there are 2 huge buildings.
2 huge buildings, yes.
And it's free.
Absolutely, it's free. Tellico Plains is one of those places. If I had to live someplace other than where I live at now, Tellico Plains would probably be it, because it has a lot of charm to me.
Go plan to spend an hour or more at his museum.
Yeah.
He was a hoarder, but they took his stuff, and it's probably the best museum within 90 miles.
Weapons. He has an unbelievable collection of rifles and handguns. And
yes, and they're military weapons. He's got a M2 machine gun, 50 caliber machine gun. He has weapons there that when I first came in the service in 1984, they're no longer used. They're now antique, or they're considered museum pieces, and which makes me feel, I'm about to turn 50 here in about 2 months, and it makes me feel good.
But he has dolls, he has toys, there's a safe out of a bank,
telephones.
Yeah, he has all kind of telephone stuff.
Apparently, he worked for the telephone company.
Right.
He has
and he has the history of telephones there.
And it does have some Native American artifacts.
Yes, and monies from different places and times, and lots of pictures.
This would be a great weekend to go to see that. It's free. You go in there and see that. You take a left and go up the
Cherry Skyway.
I never say that right.
Yeah. I love to ride that, but Ron doesn't love to drive it.
Most important thing I should say is, after you leave Charles Hall, up on the left is Tellico Beach.
That is correct. And you want one of the best hot dogs I've ever had.
Tellico Beach hot dog.
Yeah.
It's a little trailer, small building, right on the river, and you get your hot dog and sit down on one of the picnic tables out there. Bring your extra napkins.
And this time of year is great to drive up the Skyway and see the foliage change, because what you're going from about 800 feet is about where we're at, elevation wise, and then you go all the way up to about 5,300 feet.
Yes.
And with the elevation change, the leaves change at different rates, and you have different intensities in the colors. So and of course you have pull-offs up there where you can pull off and just get out and
listen to the river,
and watch all the motorcycles come through.
And there's tons of motorcycles that come through. It's a beautiful, because they use the Charlotte Skyway, and then they go on the Dragon's Tail. Right. And they kind of make a big loop, which I couldn't do it. It'd be
it dumps you off at
Robbinsville, yes.
You can take a ride and go over to Murphy and come back down and get the museum at Ducktown. Start early in the morning, in the mall.
That'd be that's quite a drive.
It is a drive, but yeah. And if you're into gambling, Murphy, North Carolina now has a
Cherokee Casino.
Yes. Casino.
It's kind of a mini casino. Doesn't have the spas and all and the big fancy restaurants.
It has Nathan hot dogs.
Yeah.
That's
here's something to think about too when you go up through the Skyway and you get off, and there's an interpretive marker at one of the spots, and I forget which spot it is, but think about those mountains being totally denuded of trees.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 1900s, the big thing, the reason why we have a lot of these short lines is because of the lumber industry. During the early 1900s, the mountains were stripped of every tree, and you had massive amount of environmental damage, and you know, when it rained, it flooded, and it caused all kinds of damage down the valleys. It's one of the reasons why we
Topsoil washed away.
Yes, and it takes thousands of years to build that topsoil, and it just took a few years for it to all go away. And it's the reason why we have some of the environmental protections that we do on the forest, and it's the reason why the establishment of the U.S. Forest Service is because of that kind of damage. And now, one of the missions, their long-term missions, has been to restore the mountains to where they were at before that point.
Eliminated the chestnut tree almost.
Yeah,
the American chestnut.
got it.
What we didn't do with the lumber industry, the black
nature
the rest
took care of it.
Yeah,
unfortunately, because there's still huge stumps up in the Smoky Mountains, but there's no trees that big because they cut them all down.
And then Copper Hill, same thing is.
Well, down the River Gorge,
they cut down all the trees to build the fires and the sports, and then the acid rain just took everything else.
Yeah, and that started from the very outset of the copper mining, because you had to smelt. They used cordwood to smelt the copper out of the ore, and then once they did that, is the chemical reaction with the heat causes sulfuric acid, and then goes up into the atmosphere, and it killed all the vegetation.
And ironically, the most profitable thing was the sulfuric acid. They actually made, when they finally started catching the sulfuric, they made more than they did off the copper. But and that's what killed that, and it took it down. Ken's come in and done our the show several times. It took it down like 4 or 5 layers of earth that we never see.
Right.
I mean, in other words, we'd have to dig down 4 or 5 feet to get down to that. Of course, and that's how come the dams kept getting stopped up with mud.
Let's get this call.
Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron, Debbie. How are you?
Good morning, darling. How are you?
Well, I'm feeling fine. I just feel so sorry for Mr. Grimes.
Oh, yes.
But we're having the same problem over here in our neighborhood. I don't know what's happened, but it's just bad. They're too lazy to work.
That's the tree.
It is, no kidding. They are too sorry to work. But I'd be ashamed to go to a cemetery, because I think they should respect that.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk with you later.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Hey.
Have a nice, yes.
We're going to go swinging here right after the show goes off.
Let's take me off my I'm going to ask you something.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. You're still on the air.
Huh?
Or were you going to ask me something off the air?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. Go ahead.
I want to ask you privately.
Okay. Ron's going. Okay, hang on just a second.
I'm going to hand her the phone there. Go ahead there, Deb. While we get this break here real quick, the Bradley County Genealogical Society, Historical Societies has a tour next week. Also, Lee University is involved in Cleveland State. There'll be a tour at the Fort Hill Cemetery. It's an annual event. It's $5, I think, to go through it, and you'll go up and you will walk the graves, and then we'll have characters there portraying the people there. And this year it's industrialists. So the people who helped build Cleveland and create the jobs here, they're going to highlight their graves and tell you about those people. It is a excellent thing.
And Englewood does a similar program, but they do it with Civil War soldiers from both North and South. It's called Dining with the Dead, and they I'll have to look at the date.
So they actually have a dinner out in there?
Yes, they out in the field next to the cemetery. They'll set up some tents and they'll have a dinner.
Oh, great!
And then once that's finished and it's nice and dark, they have the gym players, usually from Etowah, help portray the soldiers and the families of the soldiers, and they'll be out next to the graves, and different groups will rotate.
Right.
They'll spend about 10 minutes at each site, and they'll talk. Try to do first person accounts of that person's life, and the challenges that they had, and their feelings. What they left in letters, diaries, journals, or reminiscences.
We've done that here.
Yeah.
We did, but we don't do the dinner, but we do the tour. But in the last 3 years, they have been Confederates. 1 year we did the bridge burners. We have a lot of bridge burners here, and so then we had then we done both Unions and Confederates, and then in the past we've done people who were merchants. And, but this is industrialist this year, and we'll go. You walk through there, and there'll be usually the man and wife, if they're happen to be that, and they're dressed in period clothes, and they'll do, and it's a great time. And I think it's $5. Is that right? $5 to go through the tour?
Oh, the cemetery tour. I believe it's $5, and all that money goes to the history department at Lee University for scholarships for history majors.
And if you've never been, it is great.
We've had several people come from other organizations to see how we do it, so that they can do it. And 400 people went through last year?
He said Inglewood has a dinner.
Yeah, Dining with the Dead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's coming up. It's in November. It's early November. I want to say, I have to let me look at the calendar. I think it's like the 6th.
October was picked because it's usually a cooler month and it's not so hot, and it gave the students enough time from the beginning of school to get ready and stuff. But some people often think that maybe it has something to do with Halloween. It has nothing to do with Halloween. It has something to do with the beautiful October weather up there.
It does set the mood, though, don't it?
Yes, it does.
And this will start around 5 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. And wear comfortable shoes. You are going to be walking, and the graveyard is not the most smoothest Fort Hill Cemetery.
You need to watch where you're going.
That's any cemetery. I double check this date, but I'm pretty sure it's November 6th. If you call the L&N Depot or the Etowah Chamber of Commerce, they'll be able to help you out with tickets.
Right.
And I know that they're available there.
Anytime you have any kind of event that you know about, please give us a call or send us an email so we can announce it for you.
I can do that. Also, if you go to the Tennessee Overhill webpage and go to the events calendar, we do our best to. There's always some kind of festival. I saw a festival in the paper yesterday that we never knew anything about. It's like this is the first or second time they've had it. There's always something going on in those 3 counties, and usually it's multiple things going on. Some kind of festival, some kind of walk, some kind of something's going on.
The website is TennesseeOverhill.com.
TennesseeOverhill.com, and Tennessee spelt out.
Right.
One thing you guys always talk about are the artists in the area and the craftsmen, but I understand that's going to include some whiskey makers now. What do you think?
Well, in Etowah now, we have a distillery that is establishing itself. And there's some friction about it going.
Well, of course
in.
there is.
Not in the religious South.
Well, I don't understand some people's thought processes. Apparently, there's been a change in heart of 3 of the city commissioners.
Oh.
But apparently, it is beyond that point where they can change their minds.
Oh, okay.
And but they put their vote. They changed their mind.
It'll be okay when it gets up and going. They'll see the vision.
Here's my observation. This past couple of years with the voting in of being able to have package stores in McMinn County. DUIs have not gone up. They've remained the same or dropped. We did have a young lady that was going to, well, she did for a time. I think she has moved on to more adventures up in Alaska. But she had she sold steels.
Oh, that place has gone out of business?
I believe so. Dixie Queen
Textile.
Huh?
Textile Museum was right next door.
No. Textile Museum's up in Inglewood.
Inglewood.
Okay.
No. Okay.
But that's a separate issue. Her place is a separate issue, but you could use distillery equipment for different things. Of course, you got to have a license. It's not like making beer or wine. With making distilled spirits, you have to have a special license It's regulated. I mean, the government controls from what goes into one tap to, you have to have gauges. If what goes in one tap comes out the other tap. I mean, that's because they.
I had some relatives that found out the hard way about that.
Well, you know, I had my grandparent. I mean, on my mother's side, that side of the family made whiskey up until the 1960s at least. That's and as the old folks are starting to pass on, some of this stuff it starts bubbling out from the family. And that side of the family, my mother passed away when I was 5, so I've had sporadic contact with that side of the family. The last time I went to a funeral, they started all laughing and were sharing stories. And one of the stories they shared with me was my uncle's moonshine still got found in Walker County, Georgia, and the sheriff had stuck it on the courthouse lawn. And my uncle went in there that night and got his moonshine still back. So, this is back in
a different time.
In a different time. So,
who's actually starting the distillery? Are they local folks? Or?
The young man, he's originally from Etowah, went, kind of like all of us, go away for a little while and come back, for whatever reason. And I'm sorry, I don't recall his name, but, they're still progressing. They've met all the legal requirements, local, state, and federal.
Well, they had battles in Chattanooga about it too, and the Chattanooga distilleries down there now. And one time I went through their tour, and there was a lot of distilleries, licensed distilleries in Chattanooga.
Oh, there was tons back in the 1800s or 1900s. There's tons of them. The problem, down in Chattanooga, what's fueling a bunch of that controversy was the distillery up in Gatlinburg was saying, hey, we don't want a competition. Mm-hmm. So they were helping fund some of that. If you ever look at the book Bootleggers and Baptists, how economic forces and more...
Well, I was a Methodist. We were all Methodists.
Yeah. Here's the title of the book, Bootleggers and Baptists, How Economic Forces and Moral Persuasion Interact to Shape Regulatory Politics. So the two authors, Adam Smith and Bruce Yandel, they go into the whole thing of, how one was scratching, they were scratching each other's backs. So, this is, as pious as some people want to appear, they're not always pious. I bought a house one time from a Baptist minister, and I got in looking into cabinets and found a fifth of Jack Daniels, as I'm occupying the house.
Medicine, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, medicinal purposes.
I watched a documentary yesterday about how the Ku Klux Klan led to the creation of the mafia.
I'm not sure how that worked.
It's interesting. I've seen it.
Real quick, is the Ku Klux Klan helped fight and create prohibition. They were, temperance, but I don't believe that. But,
I don't believe that either.
But that's what they were saying there. And then when the prohibition came in, it led to the organized crime figures taking over alcohol, and that's where they made their monies and got their strength.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that.
So, but that was I'm sitting there and watched it, going, I can't believe that none of those guys in the Klan outfit didn't drink or didn't.
I don't believe that for a minute.
I don't believe it. But I'm saying, but that was the premise of the whole thing, is how the Ku Klux Klan and the mafia actually were against each other, mm-hmm. and because the mafias did have Jewish families and Italian families, and the Irish all got involved in that, and it was the North and the South all over again, and
mm-hmm.
so, but it was. I don't know if you ever get to see it again, but it was on the History Channel, I believe it was.
One of the, changing the subject here a little bit, another place that's a really neat place to go is the Delano Farmers Market. And I believe they're just going to be open for a few more weeks.
Yes.
Maybe closing down the end of October.
Yeah. The farmer,
you got another one up there.
We can't formally promote.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. I love the farmers market.
Uh-huh.
They're really cautious because we want to promote them. I mean, it's a really good thing. The problem is they only have so much. They don't want to increase their production because of just their limited reresources.
Yeah. Right. So their production about meets the demand now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I understand.
So they don't want to a bunch of people.
So, some of that stuff they want to keep because that's how they eat.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, exactly.
And so they've leased out land and stuff, I think, around there a little bit too. Another good place to go in this area is, of course, Cleveland Speedway. Let's get this call.
Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, good morning, Ron and Debbie. This is Mike Bell. How are y'all?
Hey, Mike Bell, what's going on, buddy?
Well, I just want to call and brag on Gerald. He's
well, I don't know.
You weren't the guy in the boat with him the other day, was you?
I was in the boat with him. It's time going down the river.
Well, good. So, yeah.
Well, Mike,
thank you, sir.
Mike, one thing that I'm really proud of is the fact that we have really started putting some effort into the preservation of history in this area. And Tennessee Over Hills is an excellent example of things that you can make happen with some work.
That's right, and what Gerald's done, and also what Melissa's done here in Bradley County, especially up in the Charleston area with Fort Cass, it's just amazing. And as I heard y'all saying a few minutes ago, there is something to do somewhere. There is something to do in one of these four counties almost every single weekend. I'm about 2 miles from downtown Cleveland right now, heading to the Apple Fest.
There we go, Apple Fest going on to what, 5 or 6 tonight?
I think 5 today, and then 10 to 5 tomorrow. But heading there, and then heading to Copper Hill, and then going to Sweetwater.
There you go.
So a lot going on, and again, Jerry,
I imagine there's a fried pie in your future.
there's a fried pie in my future.
I want to mention, Mike and I don't agree on everything, but what I like about Mike is he will tell you up front what he cannot do, or willing to do, and I always appreciate that from any politician. So, Mike, you get an A from me.
I appreciate that.
Well, maybe an A-. We don't agree on everything.
Well, I worked, my last assignment was at the Pentagon, and one of the things that I had to do, and as a strategist, I had to work, the civil military liaison kind of, the where the rubber meets the road kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's only so much that regulatory you can do, and there's only so much, you gotta have the resource. You could say verbally what a policy is, but unless you got money behind it, it's not going to happen. And a lot of people don't understand that. And then when you start talking about money, who's paying for it? A lot of American people they think you can print money all day long. That's not the way it works. It's like if I take my checkbook and I go out here and write $1,000 check and I got $100 in my checking account, somebody's going to come looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
So folks don't understand that, though, and it's hard to get that across. When
passionate folks don't understand that.
Yeah.
When they get passionate about something, they want to.
It's when you try to get that across to them, they're not, they're talking. You're talking to a rock wall sometimes,
and that's why it's important that the government can only do so much, and so if you spend your dollars here in the Tennessee Overhill areas or Cleveland, Meigs, Bradley, even Hamilton County, it's money you buy gas, you buy food, all that. Sales taxes.
It helps everybody.
It helps everything. And so when you go to Georgia to see things, it's okay, but we don't get any of that money.
That's exactly right.
And so on these day trips, it's a great place to go to the Hall Museum. Have you ever been there, Mike?
I have been to the Hall Museum. In fact, I got to know Mr. Hall several years ago when I first ran for office, and it included that part of Monroe County. Mr. Hall was known as a longtime Democrat, but he was one of the first people that I went to see when I decided to run in 2006, because
I knew I liked him.
He knew so many people, and he was so well respected.
Yes.
He was one of the first stops I made in Tellico Plains.
I thought it was very interesting that. Of course, I met him in the first 30 seconds of our conversation. I was inviting him to be on the show, and he told me at that time that he was having to care for his elderly wife that had Alzheimer's, and he was worried about her and all that kind of stuff. And of course, we talked to him a couple of times. But anyway, I believe he passed away January 1st, and she died on 5 days later.
It was a very short time after that.
And so they basically went together, and she was not alert enough to know to grieve for him, and so I think that was just the perfect.
And we're talking about
a beautiful love story.
The Hall Museum is free, right?
Yes,
it's free.
It is free, and what's so amazing about Mr. Hall is that he was a very successful businessman, made a lot of money in his life, and he turned right back around and poured it into his community,
Absolutely.
poured it into museum that almost everything in the museum he owned. And, he
It's an amazing collection, and Ron just cringes when I go in that gift shop.
Well, we
supported them.
We supported, and of course, and we said, leave out of there, and you got to go to Tellico Beach and get a hot dog.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and I tell you, if you go to Tellico, you have to go to Tellico Grains. Have you been to the bakery?
Yes, we have.
That's usually one of my stops.
God, I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah. If I'm not getting something there to eat, I'm taking bread back to my father-in-law.
Yeah.
And so my wife will give me an order, and I'll get some of the fresh baked stuff and take back. So,
well, Mike,
they make the best. They make the best wood-fired pizza you've ever had.
Oh, I'm
Ron and I looked at each other like, wow.
I done started my car.
Yeah.
Mike, I want to say thanks for everything you do in helping history and in our area. And like I say, you've been a great senator to us. And one thing you can do for us, though, and is that over on the interstate, we need a sign that says the Cherokee Removal Park over in Blythe Ferry. The state told us we couldn't have a sign because we were 2 miles too far away from the interstate.
Well, and I understand. I think that is actually a firm rule that would have to be changed. I don't think it could be. It's something that we can circumvent. I have checked into that before, and I'll ask them about it again. And it may even be a federal law. I don't know. I need to check and see. I was out at the Cherokee Memorial 2 weeks ago.
I know. It's a great place, and it just seems like we need a sign. And anything you can do, we understand about rules and limitations, but it's one place that we need. And
everything needs to have common sense with it too.
Yeah, I think so. Sure. But if you can help us there, and I know you'll try. So that's the thing I like about Mike.
He'll try.
He'll call and tell me we can't do that or we can do that. So I've always appreciated you, Mike.
Well, and I actually had the chief of staff for Governor Haslam out there. Representative Howe hosted. He and I hosted Jim Henry.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to show them what a treasure we have there in Meigs County that so few people know about.
Mm-hmm. Mike, the addition of the 1835 Cherokee census was fabulous. The big memorial they put out there in the circle. I've listened to people talk about that for 10 years, and it was such a thrill to me to finally see it done.
Yep. I agree. Well, I'm here at the Apple Festival, and I got to go, but I appreciate a few moments to talk to you.
Hey, thank you, Senator.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye.
Let me ask you, we drove by Etowah a few weeks ago and saw a big red caboose out there. What's going on with that caboose?
Oh, that's been there for quite some time.
Well,
but just up until about July, about August, it was pink. It had faded over. It had faded. The paint that was used the last time they painted it didn't last as long as it was anticipated, and it turned a pink color. But the Historical Society secured funds and they were able to paint that with the appropriate type of paint.
Maybe that's why I noticed it.
And that's exactly right. It's nice, bright. I call it fire engine red with yellow lettering. I like that, that combination.
I thought it had been there. I noticed it had been painted. But something we haven't talked about is that there is a train tour on the O-line. You can go up and see the loop around Ball Mountain. You actually ride the loop around the Ball Mountain. And there are only 2 or 3 loops in America.
I'm not sure. No, there's more than that, but it's the third. The loop on the old line is the third largest.
Maybe
in the world.
Where I got the 3 yet.
Yeah, it's the third largest in the world. I think one if not 2. Number 1, number 2 are in India, I believe.
Now, when they first built the loop, it was a little bit different, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't a loop; it was a switchback.
Yeah,
it was like a W that they used to switch back and forth.
All right.
Then it was very inefficient.
Mm-hmm. I love there's a painting of that. It's beautiful of the loop. Let's get this call.
Yeah.
Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hello.
Joe Wilson.
Hey, Joe Wilson. What are you doing, buddy?
Not bad. Just wanted to remind everybody of something else I can do in this area is ride the train up the mountain.
There you go.
We were just getting ready to start talking about that.
So you're actually work on the trains, Joe?
Yeah, I'm one of the engineers that drives the train up the mountain. Isn't that scary?
Well, I bet that was a dream of yours when you was a little boy.
every little boy wants to drive a train. You're right.
Well, you've worked down for Tennessee Valley for years down in the down at the rail yard, haven't you?
Yeah, down in Chattanooga. I worked on the steam engines and diesel and all like that. Been there about 16 years now.
I know. You don't have enough stress in your life. You go work on big trains.
Yeah.
Our toys just got bigger. We just work on the 12-inch to 1 foot scale now.
Yeah. So how often do you take the train up?
Oh, a couple of times a month I usually go up. I'm driving 2 trains next Friday. The one that goes up around the loop and up to Farner and back. It's about a 3.5 hour trip. Scenery is just beautiful this time of year.
Oh, I bet it's gorgeous, isn't it?
It really is.
And then you get to go by the Farner Trailer Park.
Yeah, I guess we do, yeah.
I've got a story about that I'll tell a little later there.
That was our children enjoyed that entertainment at the trailer park more than they did anything else.
Oh, my. I tell you what, in the summertime, it's not anything to see 50 or 75 rafters out there on the river. It's just really popular that time of year.
Absolutely.
And if you've never been on it, the track is wide as the train, and that's about it.
That's correct. There's a couple spots up going through the Hiawassee Gorge. They highly discourage people from being in between the cars and inside next to the mountain, because the mountain's probably within a foot of the train. And when they built it, I mean, it was hand dug. A lot of that there was no machinery, very little dynamite. At one point, they were using wood and burning the logs and stuff to heat the rocks up, and then throw cold water on top of it to try to crack the rocks. So it was all manual digging up through there.
I remember Linda Caldwell, who was
my predecessor.
Yeah,
yes.
They rode a small train up through there and had troubles, and we're out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Right. And their cell phones didn't work.
That's correct.
Some of the roads are pretty tight.
Yeah, they are.
We have 2 excursions. One's called the Hiawassee Loop Adventure, and the second one is the Copper Hill Special. Same track, same except for the Copper Hill Special goes all the way into Copper Hill. And Copper, of course, that's usually a Saturday trip. You go up in the morning, spend a couple hours at lunchtime, shop, eat, and then get back on the train, and then come back down again. And then get back about 5:30 in the afternoon. So, and then Sundays is the half day trip. Usually it's 1:30, and they get back about 5:30. And then right now Wednesday we begin operating every Wednesday through Sundays because of the foliage. Friday trip Joe mentioned is 2 Hiawassee Loop trips back to back. Which kind of puts a logistic challenge on us. I told them folks yesterday when they rode, we have the morning train passengers that are already parked there, and then the afternoon passengers come in on top of that. And, I apologize for the parking. We have to park people all over town. But when the depot was built, cars hadn't been invented yet. So they didn't think about parking. So it can be a challenge down in the area when we do the train capacity. We're sold out today. We're sold out tomorrow. We're sold out next Saturday. So, as we get into the month, more of these trips each train holds about 180 people.
Right. Hey, Joe, for the people listening, Joe Wilson is the director of the 911 Center here in Cleveland. How long have you been doing that?
He's retired.
Are
you retired, Joe?
Not yet. I retired from refereeing last year, but
okay.
I thought the calls were better this year.
I was hired in 1995 as director.
I knew it was a long time ago. That's 20 years now, right?
Surely not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Goodness gracious, that's a long time. And so, Joe, now what's the? I never get his name out. Stoica. Stoica. Do you ever work with him? He's from McMinn County. He's the conductor.
Yeah, he's been my conductor on several trips. Dave's a good guy.
Yeah. I never get his name right. He was the wrestling coach at McMinn County, and seen him all the time at all the wrestling matches.
Yeah, his son used to be our IT administrator at the 911 center for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Hey, Joe, thanks for calling in. And like I say, we're going to recommend that people go up and see that, particularly this time of year. Great fall foliage, and it shows you all of the Hiwassee River that some of it you won't see unless you go up through there. Of course,
Absolutely right.
There's no water in it. A lot of the Hiwassee River's barren.
No.
Well, they got
Thanks,
pipes.
Joe.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, and the reason part of the river's barren, I'll elaborate a little bit, is because of at the Appalachia Dam, dams the river up. The water goes into tubes through the mountain, and then it comes out at the powerhouse, and then power's generated, and then it gets dumped into the river at that point. So you have a gap there where it used to have.
How many miles is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember that off the top of my head. It's a
I
number.
read that, but I don't know what it.
Yeah.
But do they ever let water all over the dam there, or do they all the way through the spillway? It's not. It's the same thing as the flume line, except it's just a big pipe under the ground.
They're huge pipes.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's all let out through the. They can bypass. I think they can bypass the turbines and then dump it into the river, because if it comes out the other way, it would damage. It would do some damage.
So basically, it's a dry river. There's water in it.
Yeah, there's.
So, but it's you probably unless you take that train, you have probably never seen that part of the river.
And then also, when you do look at that part of the river, you'll see the natural erosion over the years of rocks and debris going down through there, and some of the interesting scoring that's been done on the rocks. That you'll see at other places, but you have to go looking for it out west something.
Okay, I have to tell you what happened at Farner.
Okay.
We got to Farner, and there's some little trailers there on the left as you go up. Well, there was two little boys sitting out outside one of their trailers in their lounge chairs.
Now, trailer is a loose term there.
It was a small trailer, a little bigger than a camping trailer, but not much more.
Oh, yes.
And it's been there a couple of years. Let's put it that way.
This was their home.
And in between them and there was a stack of Budweiser cans.
And they just waved.
And they waved, and you could tell these guys maybe those beer cans had been drank recently. And
They
so
were
we
having a
went
good
and done around the turnaround, and we come back, and one of the guys had fell out of the chair and was face first, still in the sitting position, but face first down in the mud, laying there, and the other guy's still waving. And I said,
much to our children's delight.
And we didn't have a camera.
One of those moments you wish.
So you could see everything on the train ride.
Did you see the attack donkey?
I did not see the attack.
There's a donkey that when the train goes up through there around Farner, it will chase the train.
Much to the delight of the passengers.
Much to the delight of the passengers, and also his girlfriend. I think he used to have a girlfriend, and that was a delight to much of the passengers too.
Yes, I understand that too.
What's the cost of these things?
Well, we have.
Now these are not $5 things. These are a little more expensive.
Yeah, they're.
This is a once a year.
This is once a year. We have two different. The more, of course, right now is the more expensive rate because of the foliage and
the demand
every day. You have the Copper Hill Special again. You have the Hiwassee River Rail Loop trip for adults 13 and over. The coach is $40 for the Hiwassee River Rail Loop. The dome observation is $70. The dome coach is $85. For children, it's $30 for coach, $70 for dome observation, and $85 for dome coach. For the Copper Hill Special adult coach 13 and over, remember that's how they're counting adults. $60. Dome observation $90. Dome coach $110. For children 3 through 12 is $40 for coach, $90 for dome observation, dome coach $110. Now those rates change in October and November. They're about
now dome. Explain what that is.
Okay, there's a dome car. Two parts of it. One's the dome observation, which is the higher portion.
And it's class of baby head.
It's limited seating, but you do have a porter that bring snacks and stuff. It is kind of a bubble canopy kind of thing. Now the dome coach is lower. The seating is a little bit. It's a whole lot more spacious than coach. And you're kind of like the backs are to the windows, and you get to look out. And those folks do get to switch around and see different sides. One of the things that we emphasize to people as you're doing the trip back and forth is we ask people to switch sides, because that way you're not facing the rock wall the entire time. So the folks can get some part of the trip where they're looking straight out over the river.
The $40 one, on the coach, that's a really reasonable price, because if you go
There's a
down,
lot of leg room
you go
and
down and
stuff.
ride the big boat in Chattanooga, the high speed tour boat that goes around the Mexican Bend. But I can't remember
I think we paid $34 the first time. I think that in the end of November, the last Sunday in November, they're going to have Jim Ogden, and they're going to. He's the
chief historian at Chickamauga National Military Park.
And I have listened to him speak numerous times. He's a great historian, but he's going to be on the boat explaining the Civil War and Missionary Ridge activity and all of that. Will probably be a fabulous trip. I think it's $24.
Well, that's all reasonable. I think it's very reasonable rate. I mean, it ain't something you do every weekend, but what you may want to do is anniversaries, birthdays.
Yes, well, we've had marriage proposals on the trip. They did that last year. We had a young couple that the gentleman arranged with the crew. They stopped out in the middle of nowhere. They kicked them off the train, and the boyfriend took the girlfriend in front of the train and proposed to her. So we have the stuff like that happens. It's special for everybody.
And if she said no, he'd tell the train to go on.
Yeah, well,
when we went, there was some people on there had just got off that TV show, My
Big Redneck Wedding.
My Big Redneck Wedding.
And they were highly entertaining.
That was the best part of the
Well, on next week's show, we're going to do the cemeteries in Bradley County and McMinn County. Laura Brian Spann will be here along with Robbie Cody to answer your question of, can we bury Grandma in the backyard?
Only if the police knows about it. And
But
there are rules. You can do it, but there are rules. Do you have anything final to say?
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on board. If anyone has any questions about the Tennessee Overhill, what we do, please call us at 1-877-510-5765, or send us an email at info@TennesseeOverhill.com. We'll answer your questions to the best of our ability. We do do more than pass out brochures. We're historians. We know who to reach out if we got a question, and we're not a subject matter expert in everything, and we'd love to help.
But you know where to send most people, though. If you don't know about it, you know where to send them.
Absolutely. That's part of our networking that we do. We contracted with historians to help us out on our Trail of Tears project, and many of the other things. When we did the waterfall brochure, I'm not an expert in everything, so I had to reach out to the Forest Service to help us out, and local folks that knew property lines, that kind of thing.
Number one is Ball River Falls.
Number one was
the Falls.
The Falls, yes.
And which was one you can drive up to. This one I'm in. Right?
Oh, that was Ball River Falls.
Ball River Falls.
Yes.
That easy one to get to.
Yes.
Let me start with that one and work my way.
Okay.
So.
The number one was Ball River Falls. Number two was Sequoia Birthplace Museum in Fort Loudon.
Half price today.
Half price today, and
at the Sequoia.
And
whitewater rafting.
Whitewater rafting in Polk County. Number 4 was downtown Athens with the Battle of Athens, also the Trail of Tears, and then number 5 was Charles Hall in Ducktown.
Oh,
museums.
Charles.
A lot of great things to see in this area.
You go up to 411, you can go to he can't say the Delano Market, but we can. And Star Mountain, what is that Star Mountain eatery there? Star Mountain.
Oh, in
Bistro.
Bistro. Yes.
Yeah, that's a pretty good little place.
Recently opened.
Yeah, and go, there's just tons of things we can do at 411. If you just go on 411, you can spend
just drive
days.
slow,
and then get on up to Benton Bacon, Benton Ham,
Benton hams up in world famous Benton hams up in Monroe County.
If you get the bacon, you cook it. You got to get used to the smoke smell in your house for 2 or 3 days. When you cook that bacon, it's going to stay around. Folks, it's been a great day here, and we always say it's up to you to save the history of you and your family and this town. What you got to do is get the old pictures from out from under the bed and out from the shoe boxes and the drawers. Get someone in your family and get a little white label and write who's in that picture or what's in that picture, and then share that history. Also, record your, either on audio or on video, record your families and their oral histories. You'll be pleased one day when you can hear your grandfather's voice again. And we always say, they'll always remember Pearl Harbor.
But will we remember Aunt Pearl? See you guys next week here on Old Town Cleveland.
Bye-bye, folks.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it on over here in the shopping mall.
Calling the Matador, it's 3:45 on a Thursday afternoon. He shouldn't be too drunk. I'm also not sure if he's laying out or if he's on vacation. And he hasn't been able to explain to me.
You're listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title, only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum, based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it,